Well, hello and welcome to the WVLT Newsroom and WVLT Plus as we take a deeper dive into one of our investigations that we did in November. Specifically, the one that we'll be talking about here on this Tuesday is a look at just how much information your vehicle is retaining about you. Yeah, that's right. In roughly the past 10 years, every vehicle that's been sold in the United States has so much technology in it that it's actually keeping, maintaining, and sharing possibly information about your driving habits, information about conversations that you're having possibly inside of the car, and any other text messages or phone conversations that you're having. Oftentimes, it's very convoluted. It's not quite clear on if this info that's being shared is one, legal, or two, if you're even aware that your vehicle is taking care of that information. And so we here at WVLT took a deep dive into what laws are on the books to protect you as a consumer, how you can learn more and understand what exactly is being obtained from your vehicle, and so on. So here over the next probably roughly about 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to take a look at just what information is being held by your vehicle, how you can access that information or at least know what your vehicle is obtaining from you, and what laws are here in the state of Tennessee to make sure that you have the rights to say, hey, I don't want that information kept about me, or work with your local elected officials to try and make sure that vehicles no longer keep that information. And so again, let's just kind of go over the nitty-gritty here. This hasn't happened or really happened over the past 10 years. So the newer vehicles, so anything from 2025 to the past 10 years and now moving forward to 2015 and beyond, those vehicles have gotten increasingly smarter. So when you buy a car and you have that huge stack of information that you sign off as you buy that vehicle, often within the fine print of that is letting you know that your driving habits can be obtained and kept by your car company, and then they might possibly take that information and sell it to third parties, insurance companies, tech, all the above. Some vehicles are taking phone conversations that you have, sharing that. Other vehicles are simply just taking how hard you brake, how fast you accelerate, all that information, and sharing it with others within that space to let them know, hey, here's how this does. Sometimes those insurance companies then take all of that information and base their insurance rates off of your driving habits. That's all a possibility. In the state of Tennessee, they created TIPA, the Tennessee Information Protection Act, that was started not quite by this topic, but by the topic of information being obtained, photos being obtained, videos being obtained, and shared from there. We're going to here, I actually teamed up with our digital executive producer, Cameron Morgan Rumsey, and he got a lot of this information. He one day got a hair and looked up his car and found out that his voice recordings, he gave permission for his voice recordings to be obtained by his vehicle, and then they would sell that to third parties. So we're going to take a look at the story that we aired the Wednesday before Thanksgiving in November, and really all the information that was obtained from that and what we know here. Let's take a listen. When you get behind the wheel, you should be worried about where you're going, not the information your car is collecting from you. But we're finding that car manufacturers may be taking more than you realize.
I'm very concerned about the idea of audio recordings because nobody thinks when they're in their car that they're being recorded.
That's right. That big heaping chunk of metal is taking your data and giving it to governments, data brokers, and even insurance companies, all to build a profile of you.
Data is being gathered that people don't know about that's having a big impact on their pocketbook.
Cole Johnson uses her car just like anyone else to get to the store, to work, or even home. But she didn't know what her car was collecting from her until she spoke with WVLT.
So they're still spying on me. That's very frightening.
VehiclePrivacyReport.com. It's a website that allows car owners to track their cars back, showing what data manufacturers like General Motors, Ford, Chevrolet, and plenty of others are collecting. We used it and found that car manufacturers collect things like your location, internet service data, and even audio recordings, something we confirmed with the manufacturers themselves, all thanks to a new Tennessee state law.
There has to be transparency and there has to be control by the consumers over what's done with their data.
Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti is in charge of enforcing the Tennessee Information Protection Act, or TIPA. It guarantees that certain rights to customers, seeing what data their car companies collect, and limiting how it's used or sold.
But if anybody's playing games out there, We have some great lawyers who want nothing more than to go after big companies that are treating people wrong.
That said, Skrmetti is a fine needle to thread.
The Tennessee Information Protection Act in particular is designed to be business friendly while protecting consumers.
Maurice Stuckey is a law professor at the University of Tennessee who served as an advisor for the FTC, prosecuted for the U.S. Justice Department, and has written books on data privacy. He says TIPA is a good place to start.
If nothing else, it's going to help consumers understand their privacy.
But there's still a long ways to go.
The problem is that there are gaps in the statute, and they're not going to necessarily provide you the privacy that you might think you would have.
A concern for Stuckey? A loophole that requires just one set of human eyes on your data.
In Tennessee, one of the loopholes is that if it's solely automated, then the protections apply. But if one human is involved, then it doesn't apply. And that doesn't really make much sense.
TIPA went into effect on the 1st of July and lets consumers do things like access their personal information, request companies delete it, and opt out of profiling or selling information. Some protection, but for Johnson, simply not enough.
Well, I mean, I would like that all of this information isn't sold, isn't monetized. I just think that none of it should be used at all.
Skrmetti himself saying if it turns out TIPA has too many limitations, the Tennessee General Assembly will be taking a look.
If there are problems with how the TIPA works in practice, I don't think they will hesitate to go back and make sure that they have an effective law.
Again, that's a look at our investigation that we did earlier in November on just how much information your car is keeping from you. But there are, again, resources that you can use to make sure that that information is not shared or saying, I don't want this information shared, and that you are protected in a multitude of ways. Like we said, the state of Tennessee has a law on the books. It's called the Tennessee Information Protection Act, or TIPA or TIPA. It doesn't really matter how you pronounce it. But it was penned actually after a Tennessee House lawmaker had someone in their house who had shared personal pictures. I'm trying to remember this conversation. We'll hear it from just a little bit. And had personal something of theirs shared, and he wanted to protect folks against that. And so we talked to him about really what was the conversation around this, why this was something that he wanted to put on the books. And then in the course of our conversation, we talked about your car keeping information about you and how this law could protect them. The Tennessee law, though, as we found out in our story, also is set up to protect businesses too. You'll always hear that Tennessee is a business-friendly state, and so oftentimes lawmakers do not want to put laws and things on the books that would inhibit the ability for companies to do business in the state. But there is a growing movement and a growing feeling within this existing world, especially when it comes to sharing information that your car collects about you, especially voice memos, that consumers deserve more protection. And so in the conversation I had with Johnny Garrett, you'll hear the idea behind TIPA, why he wanted to get it on the books, but also a little bit of an appetite, especially from him when he found out that Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti has some desire to strengthen TIPA around making sure that you can't access voice files, or car companies cannot access voice files, that might be something that they look on as the General Assembly meets soon and continues to work deeper into the session. So here was my full interview just a few weeks ago with Representative Garrett, who actually penned TIPA to have it passed. Representative Johnny Garrett, thanks for joining us today. You are a co-sponsor of the Tennesseans Information Protection Act, or conveniently named TIPA, so we don't have to say the entirety of it. Why was TIPA something that you wanted to co-sponsor and felt it was important to have on the books?
Well, with the evolution of these phones since 2000, probably early 2000s, and certainly when the iPhone came out, we have more than just phones at our fingertips. We have computers now. And the information that we interact with, whether you're on Google, whether you are searching, whatever search engine you use, the amount of data that they collect on you, that they know about you by virtue of that search, would actually be shocking for what they're able to achieve by a simple internet search. And so it came to me in light of a situation really personally at home about a fellow that was living with us, and he was interacting with someone on the internet through Instagram. And that person was posing as someone else and actually asked for explicit pictures to be shared. And that's what got my mind wondering, well, what in the world do these folks do? The platforms, Instagram, Google, Facebook, Meta, all these different, Microsoft, all these different folks, what do they do with your data? How do they collect it? How do they protect you? And so that's how this piece of legislation came to my mind, is that how can we protect the virtual you as you interact over the internet? There was absolutely no guardrails on the information. Who owned it? Could they sell it and make a profit? Did they know? Do you know they're collecting the information? What are they collecting? And so all of the TIPA information is designed to make sure they house this information, they protect it, they make you aware if they sell it or transfer it. And in some cases, they're not allowed to do that. And in some cases, you can say, look, I don't want you to. You can opt out of sharing that data, or you can tell them they can't do anything with it. They can delete it and send your data back to you. None of that was in place before TIPA to at least protect your virtual you.
This started out as the cell phone ID and what you can access on your cell phone, but you know, it's funny, if you talk to a gearhead, they say, I don't want to touch a car today, but I'll touch a car that was built in the 60s, 70s, 80s, early 90s. A lot of people don't know that your car actually has the ability to access almost the very same information that you have at your disposal on your cell phone. What did you find, or what maybe have you found since this bill passed, that cars are beginning to access information from Tennesseans?
Well, it's an interesting phenomenon. Now we're going to have cars that's going to start driving themselves, right? And how do they do that? They do that through the companies, through Tesla, through Google. My GMC truck, its interfaced is Google. It's Google Maps, etc. You have to log in to access and pay a fee. I don't do that, but that's just another interface. Now, where we used to have radios, AM, FM, and maybe you throw in a CD. Now we're hooking to the internet, hooking through your car, through your phone, through the very apparatus, so to speak, that we're trying to protect. Now your car can collect that, and not only just a car, but the car companies. And so the TIPA has certain thresholds that if you collect, I believe it's 100,000, maybe it's 125,000. It's been a minute since I've looked at the piece of legislation to see what it incorporates. But it's one, you have to share it and sell it, and then if you make a profit, and if your revenues meet a certain threshold, that you are subject to the piece of legislation. Most vehicle manufacturers are going to meet that because they have a lot of customers. Obviously, they collect a lot of data. Now, whether or not they share that and sell it would be one thing. It's really designed to make sure if they share it with a third non-related party and sell it, if they're sharing it within their own network, within their own company, with potentially their vendors, that's allowable. But there's more safeguards even in that regard now than there ever was before on how they protect that data.
How fast and how quick you speed up your car is some of the information that these vehicles collect. But one of the people in our newsroom put his car into a website that'll allow you to show what your car is collecting about you. And his car actually has the ability to collect voice data of his. Your thoughts on that? We actually talked to Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti, and he said, that's actually something that concerns me as Attorney General that I would like to look more into as one of the co-sponsors of the TIPA Act. What do you think when you hear that his car has the ability to obtain some of his voice data, what he says throughout a drive?
Well, I think the natural next question is, what do they do with that, right? With the advent of artificial intelligence, or AI, what are they going to use that voice for? And this bill, just for your viewers, started about 3 years ago, really 4 years ago, and it just went into effect January of this year. So it's still a new thing, and there's going to be new technologies that we're going to have to adapt to. I filed a bill last year in the AI world just to define artificial intelligence, and the amount of industries that came in that had various different opinions on how we define AI. That bill's kind of still stuck on whether or not we can properly define what artificial intelligence is. And I think that shows this industry, this way of communicating is still developing for regulations around it. And my sense is that the TIPA will have to be amended over time to incorporate this very scenario. because when I was traveling through the General Assembly, this wasn't really discussed on cars being able to collect the data, your speed, your elevation, what you're talking into the car, or what you're even just talking into your voice. That concerns me a lot about any privacy concerns that you are having conversations with on telephone. As you probably well know, you need a warrant in order to get people's conversations. So I would agree with General Skrmetti that we need to take a look on what data is being collected, especially as it relates to people's voice or conversations inside these vehicles. So this may be something we have to relook at as it relates to the TIPA legislation.
Nashville in a general session passes so much legislation, and obviously there are bills out there that get everyone's attention just in the tug and pull in today's political aisle, but the TIPA Act is something that really should be across the board, something everybody understands and knows their rights behind. As the way it stands today, before you all hop into session at the turn of the new year, hop back into session at the turn of the new year, what do Tennessee consumers need to know about what TIPA does for them and the basics of what they have at their disposal should they feel like something is gaining too much information from them that they would never want out in the real world?
Well, just know that there are options now, which before TIPA there was not. Now, those options are borne by the Attorney General. So if you feel like your privacy has been breached, has been used in ways that you did not consent to, has been sold, so to speak, and I don't, there's going to be various different ways you're going to find that information out. Like if you go buy a Volkswagen, and I'm pulling that one out of my head, and then all of a sudden you are getting marketing materials that you didn't agree to through some other subsidiary owned by Volkswagen or something possibly not related to Volkswagen, but a vendor of theirs, that's an issue on how they shared your data. So the biggest take back that your viewers can use from this and your reporting is the fact that there are avenues out there to make sure your data is protected. Where before January 1, 2025, there really was nothing. So this is still relatively new. When this piece of legislation was passed by the General Assembly, there were only 3 other states that had anything like this. My understanding from Attorney General Skrmetti is that they're using Tennessee's piece of legislation as a model to continue to pass legislation state by state. And my hope is, I think there's some legislation on the federal level that will apply universal, where people can follow the same rules, follow the same regulations to make sure your data, as you relate to your cell phone and now your car, is absolutely protected and not shared with folks that want to do nefarious things with it.
Representative Garrett, anything else that we left out you feel like you need to add or want to add on this topic?
No, I think that's good.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for your time. That was State Representative Johnny Garrett talking about the bill that he actually penned himself, one of the people who penned the bill, the Tennessee Information Protection Act. Again, this is all talking about information that cars from about 2015 to current day 2025, and it will go beyond this, collect about you. Oftentimes, you're not reading the fine print in that big set of information that you sign when you go to buy the car, and it just shows you what information your car is obtaining about you. Right here and right now, we have a whole host of information that you can access to just see of what your rights are as a Tennessee consumer. First of all, this is on the Tennessee tn.gov homepage. This is just a look at what TIPA offers you through the Attorney General's office. One thing the Attorney General's office does very well is wants to hear from folks in Tennessee about how they can be protected. So this gives you a breakdown of what is TIPA or TIPA, what it does for you, how it applies to possibly the situation that you find yourself in or one of your loved ones, how has it changed law, what rights do you have, and then it just kind of defines profiling, targeted advertising, and your opt-out rights underneath TIPA. And so you can have that, and then you can go even further to here and find out more information about what cars are obtaining, who they're selling it to, and so much more here on privacyforcars.com. This is just another resource that you have that lets you know what is being done today. So your information, who they sell it to, the providers of that service, and then how dealerships fall into making sure that you're aware of what information is being collected about you. Again, this is all giving you the resources to make sure that you have availability to access all the information that your car is obtaining about you. If you're sitting here and I'm like, I have like a 2014, what is my car obtaining? Or look, I felt overwhelmed. I had to hurry up and sign a bunch of documents when I was buying my new 2025. What is my car obtaining about me? There is a website called vehicleprivacyreport.com where you can enter your car's VIN number. You can find that in the door frame. If you have a Honda, you can often find it underneath the floorboard. So remove that the floor mat, and it's underneath the floorboard on your passenger side, or it's right on the driver's side on the windshield. Get around, walk right in between your front tire and your front door, and it's right there on the window. Then you type it into here. It'll show you everything that your car is obtaining about you. So I did it for one of our station vehicles for this story, and it said that it's obtaining a handful of information, and it says who it's probably selling it to. This is just a good look at protecting that. It's all a good idea just to look at sort of what your vehicle is obtaining about you. Right here, you have a look at our website that you can go to WVLT.tv or get into the WVLT News App and get a very good idea of everything. What we've outlined here, you can watch the story, you can watch that interview with Representative Garrett again, and you can start reaching out to your elected officials of what you would like to see TIPA protect further and what you feel like it or where you feel like it may fall short. All of this available right now at WVLT.tv inside your WVLT News app. You can also come and reference this story anytime you want to learn more about this topic or just kind of refresh yourself on what is available to you as a Tennessee consumer. As you heard Representative Garrett say that there are a lot of other states, Virginia, Kentucky, a handful of others that surround Georgia, that surround Tennessee, that are using Tennessee's law on this, the TIPA Act, to build their own. And there's probably going to be somewhere down the line a little bit more of an appetite to maybe make this strict across the board for all 50 states and others across the United States. So we appreciate you joining us for this. Again, this is a look at WVLT.tv. This web story that we have on there with all of the resources you may find that are handy to you to learn more about the Tennessee Information Protection Act and so on and so forth. We appreciate you joining us. We'll continue to bring you stories like this inside the WVLT streaming sites at WVLT+.